YOLO. Today we're going to be taking a look at what a $10,000 investment in Apple stock back in the year 2000 would be worth today, and comparing it to what a $10,000 deposit in an average bank receiving average percent yield would have ended up generating for you over the past 25 years. Now, this is under the assumption that you had $10,000 to put in and you weren't going to touch it for 25 years straight until this year, 2025. And this is definitely not financial advice. I'm not telling you to keep all your savings in stocks, because the market does actually go down sometimes. And if you had your savings in stocks and you watched your entire life savings crumble, that might be slightly upsetting. So take this as educational and entertainment only. All that being said, let's start with the banks, the savings account. How much money would you have after putting a $10,000 deposit into an average savings account and letting it grow over time? The results might surprise you with their underwhelming performance, shall we say. So, in the early 2000s, the average percent yield, APY, of a standard bank account was 1 to 2%, which sounds incredibly low. But when you look at the fact that the average percent yield for a standard bank account today is roughly 0.57%, just a little over 0.5%, you realize that they were paying fairly well by comparison. But to make the math as generous on behalf of the banks as possible, we're going to run our calculations today based off of a full 2% for the full 25 years. So, let's run the numbers. $10,000 at 2% for 25 years is roughly $16,400. So in this scenario, with the 25 years of set it and forget it mentality, you were able to generate $6,400 completely passively. All you had to do was make a one-time deposit in your bank and leave it there, letting it grow. Now let's take a look at Apple. Ticker symbol AAPL. Back in the year 2000, it was really only known as a computer company. See, this is in the olden times, before the iPhone, before the iPod. This is archaic compared to what we have now. The smartest type of phone in those days was probably a BlackBerry. The share price for a single stock in Apple company was around $1.20-ish. So $10,000 put into it back in 2000 would have gotten you roughly 8,333 shares. Now, if you sat on all those shares and didn't sell them till today, you'd be looking at a massive growth, because currently Apple shares are $210.55 each, which would equate to $1,754,583.33 in total. That completely blows the banks out of the water. However, I know what you're saying. Well, that's cherry picking. I obviously picked one of the greatest companies with the best possible returns. So instead, let's do something a little more fair and just look at what a $10,000 investment in the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF, ticker symbol VTI, for a much more fair comparison. This will give us what the average growth of the U.S. economy, or more specifically the stock market, would have been worth if you had put the money there instead. And one small caveat is the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF, VTI, didn't launch in 2000. It launched in May of 2001. So it's competing with one less year of growth. Now, all of that being said, let's take a look. VTI started out with a share price of $57.25 per share. With our $10,000 investment, that would have gotten us roughly 174.67 shares. Now, 24 years later, The stock price is $306.90 per share. At the total number of shares, which would equal $53,606.99 with a little bit of rounding. Not nearly as big as Apple, so less cherry picking, but still a massive amount of growth by comparison to a standard savings account. With risk, potentially comes reward, and the power of compound interest is definitely on your side. The amount of money that you make in the stock market over the long run will always be more than what you can get at a bank. Banks are there for safety and security, somewhere to keep your money, that way you don't have to worry about it. But you're never going to be able to grow a large amount of money with banks compared to investing. Now, we have the ability of hindsight. We can look back and see which stocks massively exploded like Apple. And for every Apple, there were 5, 10, 100 stocks that you never heard about that never experienced monstrous growth. Companies that kind of just puttered along or ended up going the way of the dinosaur, extinct. So instead of trying to put your money into one specific stock, it's safer, smarter, and, as we've seen, pays out fairly well over the long run to put your money in a broad, diversified ETF, such as VTI, or VOO, or even QQQ if you're very tech-heavy. And for these reasons, this is why I only keep a small amount of money in a high-yield savings account, roughly 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses, which for me are very, very low because I don't have very high living expenses. And I know that every dollar I leave in the bank is $10, $20, $1,000 that I'm missing out on in the future because of investing in stocks. I'm curious, what are your guys' thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments below. Do you think it's better to put more money into individual stocks, hoping to pick the next Apple, which will explode over the long run? Or are you more of a slow and steady kind of grow? Tortoise beats the hare. ETFs are the superior way to go. Diversification and growth. Or do you not really have that much interest in investing altogether, and you think maybe a small portion of your money should be put into investing, but a larger nest egg should be kept into savings? Maybe you're more of a 60 to 80% savings kind of guy. I'd love to hear it. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll catch you on the flip side.